Hello guys, thank you for tuning into my channel, and in this video we are going to be talking about can Christians celebrate Halloween and other little fun facts about the holiday from a pagan perspective, as well as a former person who actually was studying to be a Christian minister. Okay, so this video was actually inspired by watching one of my friend's videos, Reverend Victoria. She is an interfaith minister. Now, moving on, I'm going to be repeating some things that I've already said in some videos, but repeating oneself is okay, seeing how this video might have been lost in the sea of my videos. So here we go. Both from a Christian perspective and a pagan perspective, yes, Christians can celebrate Halloween, most notably because Halloween is a Christian holiday that was sanctioned to try to purge Samhain, which was the pagan holiday. Okay, this all basically took place. First of all, Halloween started with the Celts um, thousands of years ago, and it was a harvest festival, and it was the end of their year, the beginning of the new year, because their crops uh, was basically how they did their year. It was basically through the crops. When the earth stopped giving its food, it was entering the dark time or winter. Also, well, a lot of things are associated with winter as being dead because winter was very harsh. So that's why Halloween has a lot of dark overtones because it was a very scary time. Okay, but anyways, how this started was in the early 700s. Okay, Christian monks were taking notice that a lot of Christian converts were still trying to celebrate the pagan holiday Samhain. They saw a problem with this, so they moved to try to Christianize things. That no, this is something that is a running theme in the ancient Christian world, was taking something that already existed and refashioned it. Now, it was Pope Gregory in the early 700s that sanctioned that all Christians should celebrate and observe All Saints' Day, which was basically a feast day to honor the dead and the angels, martyrs, to basically kind of replace the pagan dead and so forth. So think of it as a religious version of Memorial Day, where you remember people who lived before you. Okay. Um, Now, yes, the problem with this was when Pope Gregory made it official to try to push the pagan holiday away. Eventually, because it's on the same day, um, pagan influences will be found in uh, the Halloween celebration. Now, as a Christian, see, this is where most Christians, well, I won't say most Christians, many Christian denominations, such as Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, do not observe Halloween, let alone any other holiday. A big group of Christians, yes, do celebrate Halloween. But you're going to have some of these Puritans that are going to be like, it is a pagan holiday, but they'll still celebrate Christmas, which basically shows the fallacies in their logic, seeing how Christmas, earliest forms of Christmas, did not exist. It was sanctioned by the Catholic Church. Matter of fact, in many parts of the world, including the United States, uh, when the Puritans left Europe and England to come here, Christmas was actually outlawed in many of the states, villages and within the states because it had obvious pagan connections. Now, obviously, more people wanted to celebrate Christmas, so that won, as you can tell, that most people, even hell, parts of Japan that aren't even Christian celebrate Christmas because they love the decorations and the meaning behind it. So eventually, Christmas won out. Bottom line is that you're going to point at Halloween because it has some blatant uh, pagan overtones, but you're going to ignore the fact that things like the Christmas tree first did not appear, depending on your source, if you want to start, did not appear until the early 1600s or the early 1500s. In 1510, You had the Merchant Guild in Europe decorate a tree with artificial roses, danced around it, and then set it on fire. Um, the Christmas tree that you know of mostly came from the 16th century, okay, and it's attributed from the Germans. But long before Christmas trees were ever a thing, pagans have been doing this for a long time. So certain customs from paganism and or whatever other religions was adapted into Christianity and given Christian meanings, like the evergreen. The evergreen to the old world pagans and heathens, it represented eternal life, vitality, because it stayed green when all the other trees would die in the winter. It stayed green, it stayed alive, the evergreen. So that symbolism was just transposed to the Christ, where Christ represents everlasting life. You get the picture. So everything right down from some of the colors, like red, for example, it was attributed to the blood of Christ. But however, the blood of Christ actually comes into play at his crucifixion, so the color red should actually have more to do with his crucifixion and in Easter as opposed to Christmas, because this was about his birth, not his massacre. But anyways, they gave Christian meanings to the pagan symbolism to make them kosher. Okay, so yes, Halloween was started by the Christians to try to debunk and push out Samhain. So Christians can celebrate it because it is a Christian holiday. It's kind of that simple. Just like those same Christians that celebrate Christmas, but they just conveniently either ignore or completely ignorant to the fact that many of the decorations and some of the customs, such as the Yule log, where people put their hand on the log, make a wish, and put it in the fire, and so forth, have pagan origins. So, unless you're just willfully wanting to hate Halloween, you really are kind of being somewhat double standard when you're saying, let's hate Halloween, but let's love another pagan holiday that was given a Christian meaning. My logic was the simple fact was that when I was a Christian, I'm like, how weak do these Christians, my fellow Christians, think their God really is? I mean, according to the Bible, God created every day. According to the happy old song I sung when I was in a Bible school, this is the day the Lord has made. It is completely stupid, silly stupid, with even within the Christian ideology, that there would be one single day that, even out of the year, let alone out of the week, out of the year, that belonged to the devil, because God controlled everything. Hell, sometimes Halloween would fall on a Sabbath, depending if you're Christian or Jewish, it's Saturday or Sunday, but it would still fall on the Sabbath, whatever perspective you were looking at it to be the Sabbath. And Sabbath is always the Lord's day, yet somehow Halloween was the devil's. Ridiculous, the ones calling it the devil's birthday to try to be in contrast. Now, well, with like Christmas being the Lord's birthday. Anywho, back in the days when some of the pagan customs that were adapted was guising. Yes, so Christians, specifically Christian children, would dress up as a saint that inspired them. Just like when I was baptized, I was given a baptismal name, and when I was confirmed Catholic, I was given a Catholic confirmation name. So I have my legal name, and then I have my Catholic spiritual name, which was Michael Augustus or Augustine. Okay, after Saint Augustus or Augustine. Anyway, way in the past, dead and buried. So just like when I became pagan, I gained the name Azrael. Okay, so which is my little buddy back here. Yeah, I am filming this literally about right when the clock is striking into October. So some of the customs real quick. Um, guising. When I was a kid, I always thought it was confusing how many traditions make spirits or scary spirits, evil spirits, whatever, look kind of stupid. Like tossing sunflower seeds or rice outside your window to keep out the vampires, or putting the broom on the front door to keep out the witches, the hag, because they're compulsory and they need to count the little bristles. They forget how to count, and they keep on recounting it until the sun comes up. Okay, well, oh, or even the glass bottles that people here in the South will put on trees. The belief is that it'd be like a kind of like a trap for evil spirits to get stuck in the bottle, uh, and then are dissipated when the sun comes up. Now, as a practitioner, a lot of these things start making sense. It didn't make sense for me, for example, when well, gee, are the spirits that stupid that they're easily fooled by some person in a mask? Well, the thing is that uh, I'm paraphrasing here, but a famous occultist said that everything you do is magic. I mean, magic is basically using your emotional and mental intent to change your reality, and that's what everybody tries to do, even in their own little world. If even if they daydream, they're fantasizing about something, how things could be. They want it to be that way, and so it's subtle magic, very subtle magic. It might not cause change, but it's still subtle magic. Well, the saying goes, everybody practices magic if they believe it or not, or if they call it magic or not. So you might as well be good at it. So when you don on a costume to be a spirit, when you're basically creating a magical act of protection, that little ritual to become something, and perhaps maybe on the other side, when a spirit is looking at you to do you harm and looking at you through its astral and spiritual eyes, it might see something that's not really kind of like an illusion because you performed a magical act of protection. So it's easily rationalized now. But the whole point of guising or disguising yourself was to keep the bad spirits away. Some of my other favorite traditions is the dumb supper that is performed on Halloween, or Samhain, as I call it mostly, which basically where you honor the dead that has passed uh, last year or years ago. Um, you would basically start a meal, you would cook a meal from start to finish and eat the meal in complete silence, as in being dumb, not like dumb as in you're an idiot, but dumb as being silent. Um, and you leave a little plate of food for your loved ones that to come and eat from, a little space at the table. Uh, or the Trail of the Marigold. Now, this is a custom that has almost been forgotten completely. Um, Basically, when the dead were buried, they were buried away from the house, where they might not know how to get back, depending on where they were buried, if they're familiar with where they were buried or not. So, like, one of the customs was taking marigold petals, which are also edible and can be cooked into pastries. But the petals of the marigold flower were sprinkled from the grave to a little trail leading back, kind of like Hansel and Gretel leaving breadcrumbs, where we left from the grave on back to the house to highlight their way home. There's tons and tons. I'll probably do more videos on this. I don't want this video to be too long, but okay. So, anyways, we're going to go on to the subject. Is that Halloween? Okay, the veil is torn or thinner, as depending on who's describing it, and that's one reason why contact and other magical acts or divination is better because the veil is weaker from this world to the next. However, Halloween gets the credit because it's a major event right before a major season of death. But there are actually there's another one which is literally 6 months exactly from Halloween into summer, and that's considered the second Halloween in some people's tradition. There's a German name for it. Uh, because of the W, I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. But you guys can Google, right? Um, but in truth, there are four major, or there's eight technically, if you want to get to it. But there are four major holidays that come in between each season. Each season is an in between, so technically, you have many different in betweens to do the same thing you do on Halloween. It's just Halloween gets most of the credit because of how it's positioned and its popularity, just because people don't dress up in midsummer, for example. Okay, anyway, moving on. So basically, according to the traditions that when I was first introduced to paganism in general, um, the god has horns, and Wicca, and many forms of Wicca. I mean, if you're Wiccan and you don't follow this specific tradition, don't need to correct me, because obviously I know that there are different many witches worshiping different gods and formats, but so forth. But the one that I was understanding when I first started was that when the god dies on Halloween or Samhain, his horns tear the veil, which causes it to be weaker as he goes into the underworld, only to be born like around Yule, which is also an interesting concept, because who else is born? Well, just about a lot a lot of pagan gods are born around December 25th, as the days begin longer and the sun begins to conquer the night and the winter gets closer to ending. Okay, anyway, but Christianity has a similar concept. This is found in the New Testament, of course, and I think it was. I can't remember which gospel specifically, because it's only mentioned in one of the gospels, and it's very very weird, because the resurrection of Christ has happened. The rapture hasn't happened, where people die and go to heaven according to different traditions. But it doesn't say that they were just dead spirits. But okay, when Christ dies, the veil in the temple the veil in the temple, which is symbolic, and we all know witchcraft is about symbolism. If you call it witchcraft or not, the veil in the temple tears. All right, that veil is again symbolic between this world and the next. So just like in the pagan concept where the god dies and the veil weakens, you have Jesus, a god dying and then the veil weakening. Okay. And then it says this: the saints of those who are asleep in the grave awoken. So it's talking, the veil tears, and then in the Bible you have the dead rising from the grave. Now the nuance is that they'll say, well, they had their body. You could read through the text, and they weren't just ghosts. They had their body. It was like a resurrection for them, a rapture. To me, that's a nuance, because if you have a physical body or not, as long as you can teleport yourself, walk through walls, and do everything a ghost can do, you're still a spirit. All right. So the dead rising from the grave, just like in paganism, you have the dead coming back to earth, rising from the grave or from beyond. So, and visiting the people of the city. So in the Bible here, you have some interesting symbolism, which I just went over. But this, of course, would be like the spring or equinox, where they celebrate Easter. But a similar story where God dies, and then when he dies, he descends into the other world, weakening the veil. So the Christians actually do, in fact, have a similar story, you Christians out there, about a Christian version of Halloween. So during the resurrection, well, maybe good old grandma coming from the other side to visit you too, right? Different time of day, but the same concept. Anyway, but of course, November 1st being the Hallows Eve or hallowed evening, the day before, which is October 31st, obviously, but the actual holiday being on November 1st. Later, after we speak and talk in different translations, whatever, hallowed evening or Hallows Eve became Halloween, and that's how that happened. Well, anyways, I just wanted to point out that yes, Christians most definitely can celebrate Halloween. If you are a Christian and don't think you can, you have some double standards in your thinking there, because Christmas is a Christian holiday. Uh, it might share the same date or similar date as pagan holidays and have the same meanings, but these holidays were created by the Christian church uh, to battle pagan belief, or not to, or to have a similar uh, belief system to attract more people to come in. Whatever you believe, whatever it is, these holidays were made by the church, regardless if they had pagan origins or not. So it's not a pagan holiday because you're not celebrating a pagan god, right? So you guys really need to stop that. Now, my friend in one of her videos made a point that giving Satan a day like, say, oh, Halloween, first of all, is a slap to the original meaning, which is to honor the Christian dead for the Christian holiday. You don't have to dress up as scary things or devils or demons. You don't have to do that. Hell, matter of fact, there's a group of Christians out there that actually celebrate Halloween, but make a haunted house with the seven deadly sins. So it's a Christian themed haunted house to scare you about the horrors of hell and the horrors of sin. I think it's I think it's a charming idea. I do not agree with the teachings of hell, because if there is a God or an arbiter of right and wrong, I do believe that it is more compassionate, and you will probably pay for your crimes like you would here on earth. You kill somebody, you go to jail. You steal, you go to jail. You're going to build up some debt somehow, and you're going to have to karmically pay for it. Maybe karma isn't the right word. Maybe it's a sudden purge. Who knows? There probably is some form of punishment. Matter of fact, the burning hell actually didn't originate with Christians either. That actually originated with Tartarus and other forms of. Zoroastrians have a burning hell, which is another religion that Christians actually borrow from, including the concept of the Jews borrowed the concept of the Messiah, because they weren't looking for a Messiah really until they were exiled in Persia, where they were exposed to Zoroastrianism with Ahura Mazda and uh, Armand the Opposer and all that kind of stuff, if I can remember correctly. Again, I'm just going off the top of my head, but yeah. So there you go. It's a long history of adaptation. Um, Thank you for watching. Oh, wait a minute. My point. That's right. Uh, you see, the thing is that if you promote a wicked day as a holiday, for Satan, there are people who, again, there are some Satanists that are actually great people, actually seem to be more moral than Christians I've met. Now, most Satanists and the largest Church of Satan, the largest body of Church of Satan, are atheists. They are not theistic Satanists. They basically use Satan as a pinup boy to piss off the ruling Christian elite. However, so they're basically atheists, all right? But the actual theistic Satanists that believe that Satan is a real person, and they do have a tendency to do bad things in the name of Satan, which, again, I will also argue about. There are certain things where I firmly believe that he is a scapegoat, just like that is basically somebody else, hint, hint, wink, wink, is doing the evilness, but he's getting the blame, because we can't have that. We can't be worshiping an all loving God with doing bad things. Even though Isaiah says, I create the light and the darkness, I create good and evil. You have one powerful God, nothing happens in the universe without his permission. So he's still giving evil permission one way or the other. Okay. Not to get into that kind of debate, but again, a lot of Satanists basically are not bad people. That's all I'm going to say. They don't. The tenets of the Church of Satan actually says, do not harm children, do not harm animals, unless it's for defense or eating. That's not what you find in Abrahamic faiths. They mean different video. I'm rattling. Anyways, thank you for watching. But she is right again, because just like people watching the news, they watch news, and all the news wants to do is constantly focus on this negative thing. Guess what? You start having copycats. So they keep on focusing on, say, something happens bad at a school, or something happens at a church or something. Then within the following months, you keep on getting more of those, because people copycat. So when you're promoting a holiday as an evil holiday, guess what you're fucking doing? You're doing advertising for the wrong team. Uh, you don't give your devil, if he exists, or even if he don't exist, don't give your enemy uh, the upper hand by giving him credit for anything. Are you stupid? I'm sorry. Thank you for watching. Bye.